The River Nile originates in Uganda, or does it? So yes and no. So the River Nile actually has two origins in two different countries, one for the White Nile and another one for the Blue Nile. So the White Nile does originate in Uganda, specifically in Lake Victoria in a place called Jinja, and it is called the White Nile because it carries a light grey sediment that makes the river look very pale and kind of white. But the Blue Nile originates in the highlands of Ethiopia, specifically in Lake Tana, and it is called the Blue Nile because it carries a darker sediment that makes the river look a very dark blue color. Both rivers meet in Khartoum in Sudan, and then they flow together as one river until they reach the Mediterranean in Egypt. The White Nile, which is the one that originates in Uganda, is significantly longer than the Blue Nile, but the Blue Nile carries much more water than the White Nile.
The Nile is the longest and among the best-known rivers in the world. It played an important role in Egyptian culture in prehistoric times. In ancient times, the river was called Hapi, after the god of fertility and rebirth. The name Nile originates from the Greek word Nilos, meaning river valley. Egypt is often called the gift of the Nile, as the life of Egyptians depended on the river. It flooded annually around the 19th of July, leaving fertile mud deposits on the surrounding land. This event was so important that the day of the flood became the first day of the Egyptian calendar. The ancient Egyptian name of the country was Kemet, meaning black land, from the rich, dark mud. As the river flooded, Egyptians attempted to keep the water on the lands by building dams and canals so that the mud could be completely deposited. Using an advanced irrigation system, they made large areas along the Nile fertile. Lands were divided into parcels by ditches. These parcels were watered from canals with water-lifting devices. The construction of canals and dams, and the operation of irrigation systems, required cooperation and a high level of organization within the settlements, and thus played a great role in creating the ancient Egypt.
This is the longest river in the world, and it starts right here in Uganda. Here's what we didn't know about the River Nile. Hundreds of years ago, the British wanted to find the source of the longest river in the world, so they sent an explorer called John Speke, who came here in East Africa to discover the source of River Nile. He found it here on a lake called Victoria, the second largest lake in the world. See, having been told about this in school, I gathered my friends and we drove 80 kilometers out of the biggest city in Uganda and came here to this place called Jinja, and on the way we passed through thick forests, crossed many bridges until we finally got to the source of the longest river. This place is no doubt one of the most beautiful places in the world because we saw colorful bridges, waterfalls, together with amazing nature. We saw dams that supply electricity to the entire country and its neighbors. River Nile is so special because it's one of the only few rivers in the world to be mentioned in the Bible, and it also flows about 6,000 kilometers northwards. The River Nile is no doubt the longest river in the world, and it's very important to many countries in Africa. It's one of the most valuable natural wonders that the world has ever got. Like, comment, save and share, and let's see each other in another video.